Hello, everyone. This is a presentation of one of my art-based research projects. It's still a work in progress. And this is a presentation I did for the Symposium of Expressive Art this year, 2026. And this is the extended version so that I can cover a little bit more than what I could cover in the 20 minutes in the presentation of a symposium. So this project that is definitely still in progress is trying to engage and to become with the entangled complexity of relationship between global North and global South. It's a rhizomatic research, so as such, it grows 360 degrees in all direction from an interplay of connection, interaction, encounters, and relationships. And this rhizomatic approach can be sometimes quite confusing, but I want to invite you to see it as maybe an entry into becoming with complexity. So the title of this project is called On Wax, A World of Relationships. And as you will see, all the illustration from this presentation as part of the poiesis, of the art practice of this research. And as we go, you will understand the historical and symbolic weight of all the different elements that I combine in this collage. Whoops. Yeah, here we are. So there is not really enough time to really go deep into the research context, but I need to underline that this is not only a rhizomatic research, but also an artographic research. Artography is a methodology that is indigenous to the expressive art. And with artography, the research grows from an interplay of relationship between three roles: being an artist, being a researcher, and being a teacher. And this research is also autobiographic, meaning it grows from that lived experience of being an artist, a researcher, and a teacher. But it also wants to be informed by context. And in this way, it's also ethnographic. And you will see how important that is for this particular project. My focus is really on the artistic practices of deconstruction, hybridization, and chance, and how they resonate in postmodern philosophy and in postmodern culture. And I will just for now mention, the main artistic modalities that I use for this research, which are assemblage, collage, analog digital, mixed media, hybrid art, storytelling, and a dialogue between visual form and thought. So I take you straight into a journey, and it starts with a physical travel to Ghana, West Africa. So you can see here on this map where is Ghana. And this is a map from the 1850s, which, as you will see, became quite instrumental in my poiesis and in my artistic process. And my intention was to embark on a decolonial journey, starting with this geographical displacement from global north to global south. I live on a tiny Mediterranean Spanish island, Ibiza, a very lovely, beautiful, privileged little world. And I went for a couple of months for art residency to Ghana, West Africa. And I was really curious to see how this physical, artistic, and perceptual displacement would unsettle and transform my own inherited and situated worldviews. So the project develops like a rhizome in four interconnected ramifications. They all inform each other at all time. And the first one is Ghana and an encounter with its land, its people, its culture, its history, and also its artists. And then there is my personal art practice or poiesis. For this particular project, I chose textile as my main aesthetic attractor and also as a metaphor of our entanglement. And all the questions that emerged through this poiesis, this art practice, they brought me into what I call a decolonial inquiry of thinking with, meaning thinking with a field of post-colonial philosopher, postmodern philosopher, decolonial thinkers, and to see how entering in thinking with these philosophers and thinkers could inform my own poiesis, could inform my encounter with Ghana, and could also inform the development of participatory art laboratories. As an expressive art practitioner, you know, it's really important for me to open up the practice into these participatory experience. And in this context, the questions that emerge are way too complex to be addressed just individually. They need to be addressed as a collectivity. They need to be addressed as a community with a diversity of point of view. So the participatory art laboratories are a way to, you know, looking to create spaces where we can find collaborative and collective inquiry using the arts, obviously. So this is about how I become myself and I can become with others with this project. So I will start with Ghana, just a few threads because of course it's so rich and there is so much to say. Each one of these slides I could talk for an hour. But we need to mention first that Ghana had a really strategic position during the slave trade. A lot of Africans have been deported from Africa towards the Americas through some of the Ghana ports. And by the 1850s, when the slave trade was abolished, we moved into colonial domination. This is the time when the European colonial power decided to take over Africa. And within the next couple of decades, you know, they basically occupied, dominated 90% of Africa. So Ghana was under English domination, Great Britain domination for about 100 years until it regained its independence in 1957, led by the charismatic figure of Kwame Nkrumah, the first democratically elected president. And this really set an example for a lot of other African countries because it was the first sub-Saharan African country to regain independence. And after that, many other countries followed up. Kwame Nkrumah was in conversation with Martin Luther King or Webb Du Bois on themes of decolonial thought, revalorization of the African culture, Pan-Africanism. So this is really a pillar in the history of Ghana and its culture. So I was going to Ghana with this textile as aesthetic attractor, as an aesthetic lens. So I was interested to, explore and discover the weaving tradition. There is the beautiful Kente weaving tradition in Ghana. and also actually others. But here at the bottom of this image, at the center, yeah, I didn't mention this is Kwame Nkrumah, of course. And then here at the bottom, you have these beautiful weaving patterns from the Kente tradition. But I was also really interested with the history of the African wax, and I'm going to go deeper into that, the African wax cloth, and the hand there, and the representation of the African continent come from African wax design. Now, as I mentioned, this research is also ethnographic, and I was really interested on how textile could be a metaphor of our entanglement. So I just want to give you a couple of threads because there is actually many more, but maybe some of you are aware that every day there is billions and billions of discarded second-hand clothing that is being shipped from the global north to the global south. And just in Accra, the capital of Ghana, there's about 10 millions of clothing item, discarded second-hand clothing item that arrive in Accra every week. So this is a business. The local people buy back these second-hand clothing for quite a lot of money. They buy them blindly, meaning they are in big packages. They do not know what will be inside. And then they sort them out. And as they sort them out, usually about 60% can be clean, upcycled, fixed, and put for sale as second-hand clothing in the second-hand clothes market there. But there is another 40% that is actually unusable. And the infrastructure is really not able to deal with this quantity of unusable textile. So a big part of it just goes into the sewage. And that created an ecological disaster in the lagoon of Accra, which is filled to the top with decomposed textile that go into tentacles of hundreds of meters into the sea. And then you might say, wow, but it's amazing. They can, reuse, recycle all these clothing that we are not using anymore. Sure, but naturally it also has an effect on the local clothing industry. And this is just to open up a very complex Pandora box, where we could pull many different threads. So another aspect of my travel to Ghana was really encounters with artistic communities. There is a very alive artistic community in Ghana, and particularly a lot of artists are using mixed media approaches as a way to reflect on ecological, social, economical issues of the country. So for me, two communities really stand out. One was the Nubuke Foundation. This is a local foundation that supports the work of contemporary Ghanaian artists, but also has a program of valorization of weaving craft, the craft of weaving of women in the northern part of the country. It's one of the only parts where actually women are weavers. Mainly it's men who are weavers in Ghana. And I was lucky to be able to go with a group of local artists to this part of Ghana in a kind of residency festival around the weaving practice. And that was a beautiful experience. And my project, if there is any benefit, economical benefit from this project, they are being redirected to this action from the Nubuke Foundation. Another really very interesting community is the Black Star Line Art Incubator in Kumasi. It's led by Karikasha Sedu with a whole team of artist teacher, and together they have reformed the art curriculum in the University of Kumasi in the last 20 years. And one of the proposals for the artistic community is to reflect on art as gift. And they see it as a political proposal on how can we create art today that is free of institutional and capitalist control. So for me, this proposal also deeply resonated from different perspectives. One of them being that for us in expressive art, we really see art as a gift to ourselves and as a gift to share with our communities. So yeah, that's a small overview of Ghana. And of course, in my thesis, I go much deeper in, all these different threads. So today I'm going to take you mainly through my art practice and my poiesis. And this again grows as a rhizome. I'm going to take you first through the selection of my aesthetic attractors. Then there was the practice of the art journal as a container to put in relation form, visual form, and thought. And then the question that emerged from this poiesis, were also approached in different ways. So the collage, hands-on, digital and video animation, and then there are also mixed media, patchwork, and weaving. So all of this through the practice, the artistic practice of deconstruction and hybridization. So I'm going to take you first through this becoming with aesthetic attractors. So in this project, my choice of aesthetic attractors are not neutral. Each of these attractors is charged with history, and this is these histories that guide my inquiry. The visual motive become agent of meaning in this project. So I'm going to take you through the 1850 map, the traditional weaving pattern, and the African wax print. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So here are the maps. So the 1850 maps, they were a catalyst in this project because they all come from a French atlas from the 1850s that I found in the attic of my family home in France. And they became a recurrent motif in the project, and they serve as to situate myself as a white privileged woman from the global north in this journey. And they also serve as a reminder of how colonial history is still shaping our world today. So now let's go into weaving patterns. Weaving pattern is aesthetic attractors that is part of my work since many years. I'm fascinated with them, and I see them as a universal language of multiplicity. Practice of weaving are 30,000 years old. They were there way before we had a written language. And they are common across so many cultures around the world. In fact, what I see is that the symbolic cross of a vertical wrap with the horizontal weft can generate an infinite diversity of patterns. And then in each culture, these patterns are going to take specific meanings. They're going to represent specific cosmologies, mythologies, tales, and folklores. So there is really a university around the cross of the weaving, and then the diversity, multiplicity of cultural possibilities. Now, in here, on the top of this representation, of this slide, you can see some weaving pattern from kente, the traditional weaving pattern of Ghana. I've reduced them to black and white because I wanted to emphasize the polarity between whiteness and blackness. They're usually very colorful, and they are really a visual archive of both the Ashanti and the Ewe culture. They record proverbs, moments in history. Each pattern has a name and is worn for specific occasion as a cloth. And they are really a form of social communication. And Kwame Nkrumah elevated the kente cloth to a symbol of Black sovereignty. And this was later adopted by Pan-African communities as a symbol of a common root and a common ancestry. Now, African wax print is a very different story. This is also a material that has fascinated me since years and years and years. And I progressively discovered how entangled this material is in histories of colonialism, appropriation, hybridity, and resilience. So here I made a collage of a selection of original wax design, which are the ones that I've worked through in my poesis, as you will see. But I need to first tell you a little bit about the history of this material. First of all, it comes from the Indonesian batik technique, which was copied, appropriated, and industrialized by both the Dutch and the British, with the intention to produce batiks that they could sell back to the Indonesian. The Indonesian did not like these industrialized batiks and they much prefer their own. So they needed to find a market. And in this, colonial trade context, they thought that for various cultural reasons, they thought that they could really find a market in West Africa. And they did. They find a thriving market there, which extended over the whole of Africa. So how did that happen? Because really this cloth became actually an intrinsic part of African culture. So again, I'm just going to give you a few threads there because this is really entangled, but just to start to get an idea. So first of all, I think one very important aspect is the hybridity of the design, because these designs were actually created from, a blend, an inspiration that was blending cultural motifs from all different cultures that were actually under colonial domination. So the African symbol, imagery, colors, the Egyptian symbols, the Indonesian flora, the Indian patterns, all of this came in as an inspiration to create this very hybrid aesthetic of the African wax. And then there is another aspect which I think has been fundamental is the market women who were distributing this cloth. Progressively, they took over the distribution, and that actually gave them really agency towards the design and towards the manufacturers. But the way that they really introduced the wax print in the African culture is that they started to name each motif, each cloth. They would give it a local proverb or a social meaning. And in doing so, they transform, they turn this colonial commodity into a rich nonverbal language that was truly anchored in the African cultures, in the African culture. And that actually, this is probably also why the wax is still, part of African fashion and part of the Pan-African heritage today. So it was a form of reappropriation. So what did I do with this aesthetic attractors? Well, I deconstructed them, manipulated them, transformed them, and created a library of selected motifs. So I worked from the amazing wax anthology from the anthropologist, French anthropologist Anne Grossfilets. This has been really my reference, so I'm so grateful for her material and her work. And what I did is that I scanned, all these material, then I extracted elements from them, and then I manipulated them digitally. And I kind of also got rid of all the colors into a one color theme, mainly black, white, and earth color, except for the butterfly. I had to have blue butterflies. So these motifs, became a library of motifs that I could recontextualize, reuse into new narrative. So here you have the library of motifs, but what was very important for me in this project was to clearly trace and name the origin of each one of these motifs and the historical context, and also to kind of engage with their very entangled authorship. I'm not going to go deeper into that, but it's a big part also of the research there. So here you see all the different motifs that I've been using along the poiesis and the research. So the poiesis, the art practice of my entire research has as a backbone really this art journaling. So here I just present, it's a work in process too, and a bit of the latest art journal in progress. But what really this served, it was a way where I could spontaneously create visual composition, assemblage, and mix it with words, quotes, and philosophical question. And so my philosophical inquiry, my decolonial inquiry could have a very entangled dialogue with visual form. And this is a big part really of the research there, how to approach philosophical thinking through art making. So yeah, we get to the end of the latest one with so I just keep going. So here we have some of the hands-on collage that started to shape from this library, and then here also some of the digital collage, and then there is a small storybook, and if there is any sales from this material, as I said, the benefit all go to the New Bouquet Foundation as a way of giving back. Yeah, and now I'm gonna take you for 2 minutes because really the work kind of crystallized into these animated video collage. I've done 2. That's the first one that we will look at now. This is both a visual collage and also a sound collage with the voice of Bayo Akomolafe.
Things are also made of what fails to appear, right? In a sense, this phone is not a phone at all. It's a phone relation. It's a relationship. There are no individual things per se, just fluid becomings, eddies, gestures, whirls, stabilities, pre-individual flows. Identity is a reductionism, if you will. Modernity's work is to take flow and reduce it to identity. Virtuality means possibilities. Our bodies are constantly, whatever kind of bodies, human bodies, geological bodies, conceptual bodies, phone bodies, are constantly traveling and migrant and doing things with the world, right? So that in a sense, you might say that our bodies are archives of loss. Our bodies are documentaries of loss, struck through, strewn with loss and grief and fading away.
So yeah, so this is the first video. So this is at the moment featured in a textile art international exhibition in Poland, which the exhibition is on the theme of deconstruction. So here also the work goes into weaving, experiment and patchwork and playing with patterns. There is all relationship with the Whitehead process philosophy as perceptual, perpetual becoming. So that's also another part of the poiesis. And yeah, what's been, I think, most fascinating for me was how, the questions that emerged from the poiesis just really started to take me on a journey of becoming with. And there I just want to say that, it's really about staying with the trouble. I'm not looking for answers to this question, really. I'm just looking to engage with them, to become with them through my own research, but also collectively in the art laboratories. So how to do that? So I'm just going to maybe read some of these questions. How do we approach cultural appropriation and cultural hybridization as artists today? How do we position ourselves within entangled authorships as artists? How do we cultivate ethical, decolonial, artistic relationships? How poiesis can help situating ourselves within complexity? How can participatory poiesis be designed as ethical, collaborative spaces of inquiry and cultural gift exchanges? So for me, the first way that I engage with this question was through thinking with, and as I said, particularly through my art journal. So thinking with post-colonial thinkers that have really gone deep into themes of hybridity and creolization, Said with exotism, Omi Baba with, the hybrid culture, Anglo-Indian hybrid culture, Glissant, who was from Martinique with his whole concept of creolization, but also his amazing poetics of relationships. And then also a whole range of thinkers and philosophers that anyway are recurrent throughout my whole research. Of course, Derrida with deconstruction, Deleuze and Guattari with the rhizome and the assemblage, Whitehead with process philosophy and, the eternal return of patterns, recombination of patterns. Becoming with Donna Haraway, really an amazing journey with Donna Haraway. Relational cultural theory with Jordan. Then minor gesture with Erin Manning. And art as gift, as also a philosophical question. And with Bayo Akomolafe, the poetics, I called it the poetics of post-activism, and the amazing way that he's taking, reinventing language to talk about all of these subjects. Mm? And then, the project unfolded through also, as I said, participatory art laboratories. I needed to really move from the individual to the collective to become with others. So here the main artistic modality was collage and storytelling as embodied becoming. And and exploring all these questions that I've just mentioned before. So the laboratories, they developed in two ways. And one already happened last July as a global on wax art laboratory with a community, an international community online. We were 19 artists and creators from Ghana, Europe, USA, Mesoamerica, many of mixed culture. And we approach the theme of art as gift, cultural appropriation, and cultural exchange. And in this collage, the participant hybrid imagery that they receive and they print from my library, from the On Wax library, and their own personal imagery. And they also bring some inspirational text. Yeah. So this was an online lab of 3 hours where we all created together. And then it developed into an open-ended collective journal over 3 months where we could all comment in a free way on each other's work and text and, develop kind of rhizomatic conversation. And now I'm preparing the second On Wax Art Laboratory, which is going to be local. So I want to bring all that I've discovered into my local community. In Ibiza, we are actually a very hybrid culture with often fracture between the very local Ibiza culture and the international community culture. So I would like that this will be an event that is going to reflect on this subject. So the theme will be local cultural hybridization and decolonial situating. And there will be an immersive exhibition that will be probably a collage, assemblage, or a body without organ as an immersive experience. With the work I developed, there will be a one-day talk on art and ecology from the perspective of local cultural hybridization. And then there would be a one-day collaborative research workshop with participants from the local community. And again, there will be an hybridization of personal imagery with other, a set of imagery. So I'm getting to the end, and maybe just to end, I'm just gonna show you the second video that I created for this project. So here it is. With the voice of Martin Luther King.
I still have a dream. Yes. I still have a dream. Yes. dream. Yes. I still have a dream. Yes.
Okay, so this was the Inner Spin animated video collage. Thank you for your attention, and yes, I hope this was of inspiration, and all kind of comments are welcome. Yeah, thank you so much.